Good morning, brothers. We will talk about the martial law during the 1972. And in this presentation, we will tackle three research questions. The first one is, who is the prominent figure behind the declaration of the 1972 martial law? The number two research question is, what is the goal of declaring the martial law? And then number three is, what is the positive and negative effects brought by the martial law? For the first research question, I will call Brother Jules to tackle this.
So, who is this prominent figure behind the declaration of the 1972 martial law? It is none other than the former President Ferdinand Marcos Sr., was born on September 11, 1917 in Ilocos Norte Province, who started his political career as a member of the Philippine House of Representatives and later the Senate. He then became president and was re-elected for a second term. In 1972, he declared martial law and with his wife Imelda ruled with a lot of favoritism. This led to economic problems and reports of human rights abuses. Marcos held onto power until 1986 when people protested against his dictatorship and he had to leave the country. He died on September 28, 1989 while in exile in Honolulu, Hawaii. On the night of September 23, 1972, Ferdinand Marcos spoke to the nation by television and by radio to make it known that he had declared martial law in the Philippines. Marcos based his declaration on martial law on Section 10, Paragraph 2 of the 1935 Constitution, which provided that the President shall be the Commander-in-Chief of all armed forces of the Philippines, and whenever it becomes necessary, he may call out such armed forces to prevent or suppress lawless violence, invasion, insurrection, or rebellion, or imminent danger thereof, when the public safety requires it. He may suspend the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus or place the Philippines or any part thereof under martial law.
The second research question is, what is the goal behind declaring the martial law? Ferdinand Marcos declared martial law in the Philippines on September 21, 1972, and his justification for doing so were multifaceted. One primary reason he cited was the imperative to suppress a burgeoning communist insurgency led by the New People's Army or the NPA, the armed wing of the Communist Party of the Philippines or the CPP. Marcos argued that martial law was crucial to maintaining law and order and preventing the further spread of communism. Additionally, Marcos asserted that the declaration of martial law was necessary for the preservation of national security. He contended that existing political and social conditions in the Philippines pose a threat to the stability of the country, and martial law was seen as a measure to prevent it from descending into chaos. The alleged inefficiency and corruption within the existing political system were also put forth by Marcos as a rationale for martial law. He claimed that the crisis of governance required extraordinary measures to streamline government processes, eliminate corruption, and ensure effective governance. Critics, however, argue that Marcos had personal ambitions driving the declaration of martial law. They contend that he used this measure as a means to consolidate power and extend his presidency beyond the constitutionally mandated 2 terms. By imposing martial law, Marcos could rule by decree, dissolve the existing constitution, and govern with virtually unchecked authority. This allowed him to stay in power until he was ousted in the People's Power Revolution in 1986. The combination of these factors illustrates the complex and interwoven motivations behind Marcos's decision to declare martial law.
What are the positive effects of the 1972 Philippine martial law? The declaration of martial law in the Philippines in 1972 by then-President Ferdinand Marcos had both positive and negative effects. It's important to note the opinions on these effects can vary, and the assessment of positive effects may be contentious. However, proponents of martial law during that time point to certain aspects that they considered beneficial. First positive effect is the economic development. Proponents of martial law claim that it provided a conducive environment for economic development. They argued that the centralized control allowed for more efficient implementation of economic policies, resulting in infrastructure projects and economic growth during the early years of martial law. Second is infrastructure projects. The Marcos regime initiated various infrastructure projects during martial law, such as the construction of roads, bridges, and public buildings. Proponents argue that these projects contributed to the country's development and modernization. Here are some examples of those infrastructure projects. First is the North Luzon Expressway. The construction of the NLEX was a major infrastructure project aimed at improving transportation and connectivity between Metro Manila and the northern provinces of Luzon. It played a crucial role in facilitating the movement of goods and people. Second is the South Luzon Expressway or SLEX. Similar to NLEX, the SLEX was constructed to enhance the road network and connectivity, especially in the southern part of Luzon. These expressways were part of the government's efforts to modernize and improve the country's transportation infrastructure. Third is the Bataan Nuclear Plant. The Bataan Nuclear Power Plant was a controversial project initiated during the martial law period. It was intended to address the country's growing energy needs by providing a source of nuclear power. However, the plant became infamous due to safety concerns, corruption allegations, and the eventual decision not to operate it. Fourth is the San Juanico Bridge. The San Juanico Bridge connecting the islands of Samar and Leyte was completed in 1973. It is the longest bridge in the Philippines, spanning the San Juanico Strait. The project aimed to improve transportation and facilitate economic activities between the two islands. Fifth is the Mangahan Floodway. The Mangahan Floodway, officially known as the Marcos Bridge, is a flood control project designed to mitigate flooding in Metro Manila. It diverts excess water from Marikina River to Laguna de Bay. The project aimed to address the recurring problem of flooding in the capital region. Third, positive effects of martial law. Land reform. The government under Marcos implemented land reform measures during martial law, claiming to redistribute land to farmers. This was seen as an effort to address long-standing issues of land inequality. Fifth is foreign relations. Some supporters argue that the implementation of martial law helped stabilize the country's political situation, which in turn positively influenced its standing in the international community. They claim that it improved foreign relations and attracted foreign investments. Here are some examples of the foreign relations during the martial law. First is alignment with the United States. The Philippines maintained a strong alliance with the United States during martial law period. The U.S. government under President Richard Nixon was generally supportive of Marcos's administration. The strategic location of the Philippines in the Southeast Asia, as well as its role in the Cold War context, contributed to the close ties between the two countries. Second is the ASEAN and regional relations. The Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or known as ASEAN, was established in 1967 during martial law. The Philippines actively participated in ASEAN activities. The regional context played a role in shaping the Philippines' foreign policy with an emphasis on regional stability and cooperation. Third is shift in relation with China. There was a significant shift in the Philippines' approach towards China during this period. In 1975, diplomatic relations were normalized between the Philippines and the people of the Republic of China. This was a departure from the previous stance where the Philippines recognized Taiwan. The normalization of relations was a part of the broader efforts to diversify diplomatic ties. Fourth, is Islamic Conference and OIC membership. The Philippines sought to address the concerns of its Muslim minority during martial law. To garner support for its policies in Mindanao, the government actively engaged with the organization of the Islamic Conference or OIC. In 1977, the Philippines was granted observer status in the OIC, a move aimed at addressing concerns related to the Muslim population in the southern part of the country.
So what are the negative effects of the 1972 Philippine martial law? First is the Philippines' external debt. In a report by ABS-CBN News, Marcos went on a borrowing spree in between the 70s to early 80s. In 1975, the external debt reached from $4.1 billion to $8.2 billion. In 1982, it went up higher to $24.4 billion. The debt exceeded exports at that time. Second is the shutdown of mass media. When Marcos declared martial law, the media was shut down. As written by Jose Santos and Melanie Pinlock in Center for Media Freedom and Responsibility's website, media practitioners as well as the opposition personalities who criticized Marcos were brought to military camps for detention. As per Department of Public Information mandated, all media publications must seek permission from them first. Marcos also issued a presidential decree to penalize anyone who would undermine the integrity of the government through print or even just possessing leaflets about it. Everything went through censorship. Third is human rights violations. The 9-year military rule ordered by then President Ferdinand Marcos in 1972 unleashed a wave of crimes under international law and grave human rights violations, including tens of thousands of people arbitrarily arrested and detained, and thousands of others tortured, forcibly disappeared, and killed. During the martial law era of 1972 to 1981 and during the remainder of President Marcos' term. Amnesty International documented extensive human rights violations which clearly showed a pattern of widespread arrest and detention, enforced disappearances, killings, and tortures of people that were critical of the government or perceived as political opponents. In an interview with the organization in 1975, President Marcos told Amnesty International that over 50,000 people had been arrested and detained under martial law from 1972 to 1975. Those arrested included church workers, human rights defenders, legal aid lawyers, labor leaders, and journalists. Amnesty International also documented a pattern of torture in interviews with prisoners from that time. In 1981, the organization released further research on enforced disappearances and extrajudicial executions that took place from 1976 onwards. And lastly, the sugar industry was in confusion. The precipitous drop in sugar prices in the early 1980s, coupled with lower prices and less demand for coconuts and coconut products, traditionally the most imported export commodity, added to the country's economic woes. The government was forced to borrow large sums from the international banking community.